The ocean and the beaches are important assets to the state of Rhode Island. It is even nicknamed the Ocean State because the Atlantic Ocean flows from the northern part of the state to the southern part of the state. The ocean is a big part of Rhode Island's culture, and visiting the beach is a popular summertime activity passed down from generation to generation. What is coastal erosion? What causes it? Is there anything that we can do to slow down its effects? Coastal erosion is the natural process that has been happening since the beginning of time and takes place all over the world. It shapes the beaches, dunes, bluffs, and the overall profile of the shoreline. In short, coastal erosion is the wearing away of the land due to storms, wind, and water. Rhode Island's shoreline is ever-changing, but has recently caused coastal communities to experience the impacts more frequently. This is due to climate change, which causes storms to happen more often. Climate change is also responsible for rising sea level, which has led to storms becoming more severe. Although living by the sea is beautiful, it is simply not sustainable. Many people in Rhode Island are left to rebuild their homes, raise their structures, and even abandon their properties. As a result of coastal erosion, beaches are becoming smaller, and as they shrink, the process of coastal erosion has higher impacts on the land. When there is less land to erode, what is left of the beach is hit harder than it would have been if there was more land. This becomes a vicious cycle of erosion, and having structures up near the shoreline only speeds up the process. This is because the water cannot go past that point to erode the land. An example of this environmental factor affecting a community in Rhode Island is the dispute over whether or not to build a seawall in Matunuck. While there are varying opinions about building a seawall, most people point to the environmental, economic, and social factors that would impact the community as a result of its construction. The debate about building a seawall along the Matunuck shoreline has been even more prevalent over the past few months. In October 2012, Hurricane Sandy caused the erosion along the coast to substantially increase and displace the sand in the area, while other beaches along the coast gained sand. Seawalls are a method of sustainable development and coastal defense which towns use in order to protect their shorelines from erosion. Sustainable developments help current populations meet their needs without compromising the needs of future generations. With no shoreline protection, however, beaches naturally erode, and with a shoreline that is getting closer to Matunuck Beach Road, Matunuck Beach has become a problem. Advocates for building a seawall argue that it will protect the land from eroding past where the seawall will be built, and protect the shoreline up to that point. Although, the seawall could also increase the time that it would take to erode the land in front of the wall, because the water would be limited to eroding that one area. Most property owners in the Matunuck area seek to protect their homes and businesses for both economic and sentimental reasons. Although it is clear that the rising sea level will be the victor in this scenario, property owners are willing to do whatever it takes to prolong the lifetime of their properties. If the properties along Matunuck Beach Road were destroyed due to erosion, this would cause Rhode Island to lose some of its annual tourism revenue. This is an important area during the summer season when local businesses draw in customers who are visiting the beach and surrounding areas. Although businesses along the road might seem small, they act as small economic drivers for the town by providing the town with tax revenue and tourism. These businesses also provide several jobs throughout the year, which is important to the community as a whole. Although the seawall in Matunuck carries the potential to protect the shoreline, there are still many detriments to building the seawall. Currently, it is agreed upon by residents and visitors that Matunuck does need some type of coastal protection due to excelled erosion over the past few years. The primary reasons why Matunuck residents want to halt the erosion of its shoreline are to maintain tourism and to maintain the properties along the shore. This decision affects the community socially, economically, and environmentally, but in situations like these, the land cannot advocate for itself, so it's up to us to sift through the political debates and personal opinions.
Hi, my name is Julie Pettis, and I'm a teacher at the Green School. I live in Matunuck, Rhode Island.
How many years have you lived along the coast of Rhode Island?
I've lived there for the past 12 years.
What made you decide to live along the coast?
I've always loved the beach. Even as a kid, I loved the ocean. I enjoy the smell, the sound, and the water. And after September 11th, 2001 happened, I decided that life is too short, and if I'm ever going to live by the ocean, I should just do it now. And that's what prompted me to buy property in Matunuck.
How have you been directly affected by the coastal erosion?
I first started going into Matunuck in 1973, and I enjoyed the area because I found it to be so different from Narragansett. Narragansett is a lot busier with stoplights and stop signs and lots of people and businesses. And Matunuck was a little, I thought, to be a quaint area with the theater, a small grocery store, and we used to be in the 70s, in the 80s, we used to be able to play volleyball on the beach. That's how big the beach area was. The town beach, the South Kingstown Town Beach, which is just along the coast of Matunuck, had a big pavilion with a long walkway. And now the pavilion is almost completely gone. There's no more walkway down along the beach connected to the pavilion, and you can no longer play volleyball on the beach in Matunuck. There's just not much beach there anymore.
How were you and your property affected by Superstorm Sandy?
Superstorm Sandy happened October 29th, 2012, and today is May 8th, 2013, and I still have problems with my heating system. I stayed there during the storm in my house. My house was like an island. It was completely flooded all around me. I had 2.5 feet of water all around my property. It was actually measured at 28 inches, so not quite 2.5, just a few inches short of 2.5 feet. But my heating system was all in the basement area of my home. I have a duplex house, 2 furnaces, 2 oil tanks were under the house there. And because they were completely flooded out, it ruined the furnaces, and they had to be replaced. The town won't let me put the new heating system back under the house because of flooding, and it's just been one problem after another, and I've switched over to propane heat, but still having difficulty with getting the whole system up and running. I literally went all winter with no heat in my house, just heated by space heaters.
Can you foresee a point where living by the coast no longer makes sense for you?
I try not to think about that because I love the ocean so much. I love the spring and summertime when the windows are open and I can hear the ocean and smell the ocean. And it's hard for me to imagine not being able to do that anymore. What would happen, I guess, if the businesses along the beach were completely flooded out? That's going to really affect my property. I live just 3 houses back from the water and the salt pond, which connects to the ocean around East Matunuck is right across the street from my house. So I'd get flooding from the pond as well. So I think if we had a storm that was bad enough to wipe out the beachfront properties, it might make me reconsider living so close to the water.
Who do you think should pay for cleaning up after storms?
I have flood insurance, I have homeowners insurance. It's amazing when a flood occurs how much they don't cover. And I do think that government should assist in cleanup from storms.
If your home was completely destroyed by a storm, do you think that it would be the state's responsibility to help you clean up and rebuild?
I do think it would be the state's responsibility to help with the cleanup. I do not think it would be the state's responsibility to help rebuilding.
To what extent does the beach contribute to you staying by the coast?
Pretty much 100%. One of the, the reason I'm there is because of the beach.
What are your views on the proposed seawall in Matunuck?
My understanding of the proposal for the seawall in Matunuck is that the seawall would be 200 feet long and would be placed right along the roadside. It would go from the end of where the road turns, where Matunuck Beach Road comes down from Route 1, and when it turns to run parallel to the ocean, my understanding is that it's going to begin at that point where the road turns parallel to the ocean and run 200 feet. I don't think, well, it's not going to protect any of the businesses or homes that are on the beach there, and I don't understand how that could help with erosion. It surprises me that the town or the state would even consider doing that when it doesn't protect any of the properties, and the town would therefore lose tax revenues from all those beachfront properties if they didn't protect them.
Hi, my name is Laura Dwyer. I'm the Public Educator and Information Coordinator for the Coastal Resources Management Council.
What is the Coastal Resources Management Council and what do they do?
We are a management agency with regulatory functions. We are the primary manager of the state's coastal resources, and we permit certain activities within the Rhode Island coastal zone through policies and permitting.
Why was the Coastal Resources Management Council started?
In 1971, the Rhode Island General Assembly created us with the charge of preserving, protecting, and where possible, developing the coastal resources of the state of Rhode Island for this and future generations. So that was in recognition, of the importance of the state's coastal resources and what they provide to the social and economic value of the state and the welfare of the state. And so they charged us with protecting and balancing that.
Can you tell me about the history of the town's plan to build a seawall in Matunuck?
Well, the town of South Kingstown, and I'm sure they would tell you this, they've been struggling with erosion for a couple of decades. It has steadily gotten worse as sea level rise and climate change have accelerated, and also there are more people down here. They had come to us with the idea of building some sort of shoreline protection. It is prohibited in our program, our coastal program, in that area. So we had a number of meetings and work sessions with the town council, other folks to try and determine a solution. Eventually, we came up with a kind of a report of information on potential solutions management of that area. And although a seawall or a shoreline protection structure is prohibited in that area, we were willing to work with the town to come up with a solution. So right now they have a permit for a 200-foot section of seawall that will protect Matunuck Beach Road in one area, and we are going to be working with them on future long-term management and solutions.
What types of changes should Rhode Islanders make to their coastal plan to make better decisions?
That's a very good question. That's something we try to address in our coastal program. As Rhode Islanders, we have to be willing to balance the protection of our natural resources with, intelligent and sustainable development. And that's what CRMC tries to do through its program. Sometimes in order to make better decisions, we have to be willing to ask the difficult questions.
How have you seen Rhode Island's coastline change over the years?
Well, not me particularly, because but in general, we've seen intensification of use of the coastal resources, of the coastal areas. Simply put, there are more people coming down here, coming to live here. What used to be summertime beach communities are becoming year-round neighborhoods and residences. So there is no shortage of people's interest in using the coast and enjoying it. So we've had to face that fact.
Is it wise for people to continue to build properties along the coast?
It's not an easy question to answer. Unfortunately, we have to balance. Our main goal is balance. We need to balance the protection of coastal resources with the rights of property owners and the multiple users of our coast. We have tourism industry, we have businesses, we have private property, we have recreational use. We have so many different uses of our coastal resources. We have to balance all of that at CRMC. So, in this role, and especially post Sandy, we've tried to encourage property owners to make intelligent decisions. Some have chosen to withdraw. For example, some of the owners of the Browning cottages have decided that they are going to remove the homes because they were, damaged beyond repair during the storm. Others, other property owners have had the ability to elevate their homes and move back, so they've bought themselves more time. Others, like Roy Carpenter's, they had contingency plan in place, which is great. They're moving cottages back so they're not in harm's way. But it's a very personal thing to anyone who lives on the coast. So for us to have to say to them, someday you won't be able to rebuild, it's a really difficult thing to do. So we're trying to plan for that. We're trying to come up with solutions and management that will make sense to people hopefully in the future. And one of those things is our shoreline change special area management plan. It is a management plan for specific areas of Rhode Island, and we've started it, and we're focusing right now on the South Shore, so including the Matunuck area. We're looking at erosion, what the issues are particular to that area, how to plan for the future, come up with policies and management that will help people and really help us make the best decisions. But this management plan that we're working on is going to be looking at how the shoreline has changed over our history, as long as we've been looking at it, and what that means for our future and what that means for people who own properties and have businesses on the coast, and also how this affects Rhode Island at large.
My name is David Prescott. I am the South County Coastkeeper for Save the Bay.
What is Save the Bay and what do they do?
Save the Bay is an advocacy, education, and restoration environmental organization that's been around for almost 43 years now. We work to develop policies that help to protect the bay and our local waters. We restore native habitats, and we educate students and the public about the importance of protecting the bay.
Why was Save the Bay started?
Save the Bay started over 40 years ago based upon several development issues that had the potential to have some really negative impacts to the bay. A nuclear power plant, a coal fire plant, a oil refinery. All of those had definitely had a huge potential of having negative impacts, and that was just a group of small people getting together to try to stop them from happening.
In what ways has Save the Bay been affected by coastal erosion, and do you foresee coastal erosion to affect Save the Bay in the future?
We have actually been personally affected by coastal erosion. Hurricane Sandy had a very negative impact to our exploration center in Newport. When the storm actually came ashore, it put about 3 feet of water inside the exploration center. It flooded the entire basement where all our pumps and filters were. We didn't actually lose any fish or any other creatures, but it did obviously fry our equipment and whatnot. So in looking forward for that, we are already making the steps to look for more long-term, more sustainable areas to actually rebuild the exploration center, which is one of our showcase centers.
What is your role as South County Coastkeeper in regards to coastal erosion?
Oh, my role has definitely changed a lot over the last 5 years. A lot of my role is speaking out against harmful development or development that's not really sustainable around the coastline. As we have higher sea levels, more frequent storms, more intense storms, there are a lot of options on the table, and oftentimes it leads to having to move away from that area to be actually safer. And one of the things that we've actually been advocating for is looking at balancing all those different options, from rebuilding to raising the structures to retreating and actually abandoning the property.
How has coastal erosion impacted the coast of Rhode Island over the past few years?
Coastal erosion is not a new thing. It's been happening for decades, centuries. The biggest issue recently is that with higher sea levels and more intense and frequent storms, that we're starting to see these impacts more and more. So since we built houses along the shoreline, those are permanent structures on a beach that wants to move. Beaches always want to move. Beaches are dynamic. They want to move in, they want to move out. When you put something permanent, something hard structured against there, whether it's a seawall or a structure itself, it has nowhere to move. So ultimately, the sea will take that away, and that's actually what a lot of what we're seeing is that the erosion rates are actually growing because we're so close to the shore now.
How have you seen Rhode Island's coastline change over the years?
Kind of just building upon the last, very similar. I mean, we can definitely see it. There's no question that you have areas that had 100 feet in front of them that now have 25 feet in front of them. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we're losing our dune systems. We've been building up these areas for a long time, so it actually is happening right before us. And if Sandy had actually hit us as a direct hit rather than a sideswipe, the whole coast of Rhode Island would be completely different. We were very fortunate with Sandy, but does not mean that we're out of the woods yet. This is the kind of new climate that we live in. It's the kind of the new normal that we need to deal with.
Is it wise for people to continue to build properties along the coast?
It's a great question, whether or not it's wise. a lot of the families that have properties along the coast have lived there for centuries, for basically for decades, and there's a lot of personal connection to these properties. And one of the things is that we got to be very cautious about taking away that basically personal side of things, and getting the public to realize that these kind of building in these types of environments is not sustainable. So it's not, overall it's not a wise decision. Ultimately, we need to look at places that are further away from the ocean, further away from flooding, higher, and stop spending taxpayer money to help rebuild them.
What do you see as the biggest challenge of the future of Narragansett Bay?
We'll always have our different development projects that could threaten potentially the health and the ecosystem of the bay, but really the biggest thing is climate change, because it's one of those things that we just don't know what the true impacts are going to be. We're seeing them everywhere. We're seeing them along the coast where the erosion is worse. We're seeing it in our salt marshes where higher sea levels mean that is showing us that our marshes are actually sinking and that we have no places for our marshes to retreat to. So really climate change is the issue of and is going to be the issue for a long time going forward.
Thank you.